Hi, everyone. Happy to see you all in this webinar. So just before starting, if you have any question, you have the question box available on your Livestorm interface. After this webinar, you will also receive the replay on your email box. So today we have a 30 minutes masterclass on how to get started with object storage. And today with me, Marie Debar, the product manager for object storage, and Quentin Selle, engineering manager of object storage. I am Paul Quéant, the product marketing manager for storage products at Scaleway. So, before diving into object storage, let's start with a pre-introduction about Scaleway. If you don't know, we, Scaleway, offer a complete suite of cloud and AI products, but also managed services. We aim at delivering a secure and reliable environment for the most demanding clients in Europe, such as Mistral AI, Hachette Livre, Photoroom, or the French government. Choosing Scaleway, it's choosing a French and European cloud provider. We are an alternative to the hyperscalers regarding data sovereignty, GDPR compliance, and thanks to our local footprint. Our software is developed, our softwares are developed, in-house with European IP and are not regulated by the Cloud Act. And we are 100% French owned by a telecom giant because we are part of the Iliad group. That is one of the biggest European telecom players. I was talking about local footprint. This ensures two main points: the reliability and the security of our products. We are the only European player providing resilience for the products we have across 3 regions with 3 availability zones for each region. This ensures a native redundancy for all your data and compute needs. This resiliency is covered by a high-performance network that guarantees the exceptional connectivity between regions and customers. So, now that you know a little bit more about Scaleway, let's see what's the menu of the day. So, we will start with an introduction about object storage and the basics. Then we will continue with the security, the advanced features, and the integrations with third-party applications. And at the end, we will have a conclusion, of course, with key takeaways, and you will have time to ask your question during the Q&A. If you have any question during the presentation, as I said, you can use the question box on the Livestorm interface. So, introduction and basic, we'll start with the introduction to object storage. The first question when talking about object storage is, what is object storage? So first, let's understand how it is built. Object storage is made of buckets and objects that are inside the buckets. Those objects are unstructured data, such as images, videos, files like CSV file or PDF files, or raw data, for example. At Scaleway, our object storage solution is made to scale to petabytes of data, not only hundreds of terabytes, and can host billions of objects within a single bucket. And last but not least, we have different storage classes in object storage, such as our standard multi-AZ, the standard class, one zone infrequent access, or Glacier, the cold storage class that you can apply to your objects. And Marie will deep dive a little bit later on that. Now, let's see how object storage can answer specific use cases. So the first one, and mainly, and the main known use case is the archiving. You can use, for example, the lifecycle rules to archive your data to a cold storage class, such as Glacier, and benefit from lower cost. You can also use object storage for DRP and backups. So DRP stands for Disaster Recovery Plan. So to ensure a recovery of your infrastructure, you can store your backups into object storage. And we will come back on this use case at the end of the presentation with a dedicated slide. On the other hand, you can use object storage when you want to share content, such as videos, images, for example, to a broad audience. And this is called the media diffusion. Mainly related, but with another use case, you can share all type of files by using object storage, like a file transfer tool, such as WeTransfer, for example. As I said during the introduction to Scaleway, at the beginning of the presentation, we are delivering cloud and AI products. Here, with object storage, you can store your raw data that you will use to train your artificial intelligence or machine learning models into object storage. For the big data, you can create a scalable data lake to power your business analytical needs, and you will have higher IOPS. So IOPS stands for input-output operations per second, and you will benefit from a low latency. So now, Marie, the floor is yours for the next part of object storage presentation.
Sure. So now let's see how to get started with Scaleway Object Storage. So first, to store data, you need to first create a bucket. So let's imagine you already have a Scaleway account. The best way to do it is from the console to start with. And when creating your bucket from the console, you can now activate a free trial that allows you to store up to 750 gigabytes per hour of multi-asset standard class to test the product and receive great best practices info along the way. When you create a bucket, you first give it a name and you choose a region for your data to be stored. So we currently have Paul, have 3 regions, also reign in Paris, Amsterdam, and Warsaw. And since Q4, all our regions are multi-asset by design, meaning that we are resilient to the loss of an entire data center for object storage. And also, I'm very happy to announce today that we are releasing tomorrow legal SLA that will go up to 99.9 availability onto our multi-asset class and 99 availability on One Zone and Glacier class. So this is aligned on the best SLA provided on the market, and so you will receive at the end of the webinar the link also to the exact content. So when you create your bucket, you set up the bucket visibility. So we'll come back a bit later on it, but to say if your bucket is for a public or private use case. And then you can now upload objects. So there are several ways to do it. You can use the command line or automation tools like Terraform. For console, the limitation is for objects and under 5 gigabytes. When you upload an object, you can upload it with one of our 3 storage class. So we have 2 hot storage class, the multi-asset class, and the One Zone IA class. That is less resilient, but depending on your use case, it can also be interesting. And the Glacier class, that is for cold storage purpose. What to know, there is the multi-part upload method that you can use, and that is mandatory for objects that are above 5 gigabytes in size. As a reminder, for object storage, you can upload objects up to 5 terabytes. But the multi-part upload method can also be used to upload objects while optimizing your performance. And for that, you upload objects in parts. We recommend that your parts are equally sized, except for the last one, of course. And something to keep in mind is to remember to clean up incomplete multi-part uploads. Otherwise, you might be billed for the parts that are still incomplete and that have been uploaded onto our object storage. So you can abort multi-part uploads thanks to the abort method. That is a dedicated method, but you can also set up a lifecycle rule for that. And we're going to see that right after. So once you get your objects into your buckets and you have plenty of objects, you have a high interest into optimizing your storage costs. And the lifecycle rules is the FineOps tools per excellence for object storage. It can also be used to move automatically for your backups and transition them to a colder storage class at a desired frequency. And by optimizing your costs, we mean like expiring old objects after a certain number of time, moving them to a colder class, or cleaning up like garbage parts from these incomplete multi-part uploads that happened. Lifecycle rules are made so to transition objects or prefixes within a bucket from one class to another. You need to know that it is always from a hot class to a colder class. So from multi-AZ to standard to glacier, or multi-AZ to one zone, or one zone to glacier, etc. And very soon, we're gonna also integrate versioning with lifecycle rules. For now, the lifecycle rules apply to current version of objects, and very soon you will also be able to transition and delete automatically non-current version of objects a certain number of days after they become non-current. So, which will be also a great enhancement, and this is planned for early Q2. Something to know for lifecycle rule as well is that currently there is a limit of 500,000 of jobs per project per day. So this is a limit. You need to design your application around that. And so, for example, it is best when you can to use other ways if you want to upload, for example, directly data into Glacier, not use lifecycle rules for that, etc. Something cool with object storage is that it's really well integrated into the rest of our product ecosystem. And so here you can see, for example, the integration of object storage with Cockpit that is useful for monitoring the use of your solution and data. Typically, you need to activate Cockpit from the console, and you can immediately access your metrics and logs. So metrics around your bucket size, storage class repartition, number of objects, ingress, egress, etc. You can look at all of that, and you can also search through logs with the Grafana search that is really interesting to dig through the information you are looking for. So now that you have the basics, let's talk about a bit about security and see what are the best practices you need to put in place to use object storage securely. So the first one we can think about is, so at bucket creation, you've understood that you can configure status, private or public. This is a setting that applies to the bucket. When you say that your bucket is public, it doesn't mean that your objects within it are public. By default, objects are always private. So be reassured for that. If you have a use case where you don't want your data to be shared, by default, objects are private. You can make public objects via ACL or by sharing a public link, a temporary public link for an object, for example. And you also have this more granular way of controlling that through bucket policy to, for example, allow anyone to have like use only certain methods onto certain objects. There is also currently a product under private beta that works with object storage, that is Edge Services. And this is kind of a CDN-like and can be useful for caching purpose with object storage or generating, for example, SSL certificates for a bucket website. which bucket settings you need to master. So there are 3 of them. Bucket policy. So, and we have right after a demo with Quentin that will dig a bit better onto how to configure bucket policy. But bucket policy is a resource-based policy that applies to buckets to grant more granular access to buckets and objects within it. It allows to restrict access to a certain scope of resources of object storage for your users and applications that are defined in IAM. The versioning is a way to keep historical versions of an object in the same bucket. Typically, this is useful for durability purpose if you want to prevent from undesirable change or deletion and always being able to retrieve previous version of an object in case something gets wrong. Object lock is a very specific feature that needs to be set up at bucket creation and that are useful for legal purpose or compliance. For example, if you want to prevent from specific objects from being deleted or overwritten. This matches the immutability use case you can think of. So now let's dig a bit better into bucket policy. So IAM allows you, as you may know, to grant various permission levels to users and applications defined in IAM. When you grant policies through IAM, you give permissions level at the product level that allows, for example, certain users and applications to do a set of actions on all buckets or all objects within object storage. So here we're missing the resource granularity. What brings that answer is bucket policy. So bucket policy will allow you to define on which bucket and objects, and there is one specific bucket policy per bucket, so which bucket and objects the above users and applications who have been granted access through IAM can perform actions. So how it works, as a summary, if there is no IAM rule, this is an implicit deny. So no matter what the bucket policy say, nobody will be able to perform actions on object storage. If IAM is granting access to certain users and application, then you need to look if there is a bucket policy. If there is no bucket policy onto our resources, then what says IAM is true and sufficient. And so everything that IAM says will apply. If there is a bucket policy, then we are looking at the combination of both. And so users will need to have the sufficient access defined into IAM, then to be restricted access at the resource level thanks to the bucket policies. So we're going to see how it works, like with a specific example and demonstration with Quentin. So let's say you are a B2B company and you have several customers that are accessing data within a single bucket. So we, for example, have dedicated a prefix to customer 1 and another prefix within your bucket to customer B. So here, what you want to do is have like IAM policies that first grant sufficient access to your customer application to perform actions onto the data. So you will have IAM policies granting access to read and write objects at object storage level in general for both applications. But then you want bucket policy to ensure that each customer can only access the data that are stored under the prefix. And I'm giving the mic to Quentin to show how we can set up that.
Hello, I'm Quentin Sell, Engineering Manager for the Object Storage product and working at Scaleway for 6 years. As Marie just mentioned, I'm going to show you how to restrict application accesses to some resources within a bucket using IAM and history bucket policies. So let's share my screen first. Okay, it works. Perfect. So in the Scaleway console, let's navigate to the IAM section and list my application. All right. So as you can see, I've created 2 applications, one called application A and the other one called application B, as shown in Marie's example earlier. each application has restricted access thanks to an IAM policy. So let's check for the application A. So here we have read access to the object storage buckets. And here we have delete, read, and write access to the object inside an object storage bucket. So we have the same setup for the application B. Let's check. Okay, perfect. So now let's go to my terminal and use AWS CLI to manage and restrict application accesses on my bucket. So I've prepared a script to make it simpler and avoid the demo effect. So first step, we're going to check my AWS CLI configuration to check that the access keys are correct. So for the application A, I have the app A profile. So I'm going to copy this access key and I'm going to the API keys section. And yes, it matched with the application A. I'm doing the same now with the application B. Perfect. So everything is set up correctly. So let's do the first test. We're going to upload an object on the customer A prefix on the bucket webinar with the application A AWS CLI profile. So the object is called customer A object 1. So as expected, it works. I'm doing the same now with the application A profile on the customer B prefix. It also works, thanks to IAM, but this is not the final behavior shown on Mary's diagram. We'll come back to that later. So I'm doing now the same two steps, but with the application B profile. So on the customer B prefix first, it works, and on the customer A prefix, it also works. So you remember Mary's diagram? We want to restrict application A access to the customer A prefix only, and we want to restrict application B access to the customer B prefix only. Bucket policies make it possible. I've prepared a bucket policy to simplify the demo. Here it is. So we are using the latest version of the bucket policy, which introduces an implicit denial, meaning that everything not explicitly allowed in the bucket policy is denied. The first statement allows my organization owners to keep all rights on the bucket. As you can see, action, S3, everything on the bucket webinar and everything under the bucket webinar. Let's check the user ID. User, it's my account, and it matched. Perfect. Now, the second statement gives get object, put object, and delete object accesses on the webinar bucket, but only for the customer A prefix. So every object under this prefix to my application A. So let's check with the ID of the application A. It matched. Perfect. Ditto for the first statement with the application B. And we're good. All right. So now let's apply this bucket policy. And as a reminder, anything that is not explicitly allowed in this bucket policy will be denied. So it has been uploaded, and I'm going to do the previous test that we did before. So I'm going to upload with the application A profile on the webinar bucket on the customer A prefix, the customer A/object2 object. As expected, it works. So now I'm doing the same with the application A profile, but under the customer B prefix. And we have an access denied. Perfect, thanks to the bucket policy. Now I'm going to upload on the customer B prefix with the application B. It works. And now I'm going to upload under the customer A prefix with the application B. Great, we have another access denied, thanks to the bucket policy. Perfect. So now let's run the same test, but this time with downloads. So I'm downloading the customer A/object1 object previously uploaded to std out. So I'm doing it with the application A, and it works. We have the hello object previously uploaded. Now I'm doing the same test, but with the customer B object, with the application A profile. We have an access denied. It's perfect. So now let's do this test, but with the application B profile. So let's download the customer B/object1 object previously uploaded. It works. We have the content of the object one, which is hello and the new line. And I'm doing the same with the application B profile, but with the customer A prefix. And we have an access denied. So yeah, it's perfect. And the same goes for the delete object. So we saw how to restrict application accesses to some resources within the bucket using IAM and history bucket policies. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. Now back to Marie.
Yes, and I'm giving the mic back to Paul.
Thank you, Marie and Quentin. So now let's see the integration with applications, well, with third-party applications. So Scaleway Object Storage is one of the most S3 compatible object storage solution on the market. You have multiple ways to connect object storage to your application, such as the AWS SDK, so the software development kit, for your programming language. For example, if you have your data at AWS on the AWS S3 and using the AWS SDK, you can migrate to Scaleway without changing the code of your app. We are also compatible with the S3 API using HTTP requests, or you can use a third-party S3 client library. So at the beginning, I was talking about DRP, disaster recovery plan, and backups, and Marie talked a little bit about versioning. We are approaching the end of the session, so let's have a look at those use case and features. About backup strategy, there are two types of backups. The primary backups are the ones stored on what we call the hot storage classes, meaning multi-AZ or one-zone IA. It allows you to access your backups immediately in milliseconds when needed. It could be stored, as I said, on the standard multi-AZ or the one-zone IA at a lower cost because it's only stored on one AZ. The secondary backup is the one to store for even more cost effectiveness your backups. In case your primary backup has an issue, you will be able to restore the secondary backup. You will have to wait for a few minutes up to hours, but you will find this, and those backups are stored on the Glacier cold storage class. And it's the best cost-effective solution for your backup. And if you want to manage a complete backup strategy, Object Storage is compatible with third-party applications, such as Vim, that will help you to manage and optimize for you the backup creation, storing, or the deployment of the backup. So now let's jump to our conclusion and what are the things to remind with this webinar. So we have three information to keep in mind. Object storage is made for all use cases, from content delivery to the trendy AI, ML, and big data use case. The complete storage range, we have a complete storage range, okay, from multi-AZ resiliency by design to our cold storage Glacier class. And last but not least, we have key object storage features that can change your life. We have the lifecycle rules, we have the versioning, we have the bucket policies. Those features can change your life, but also the life of your budget. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see a small preview of what's coming next. It's our roadmap until July. So as Marie said, we will have the service level agreement that will be live today or tomorrow, but applicable from March 1st. And then in June, we will have the encryption at rest with the SSEC method in June. And in July, we will be ISO 27001 for object storage. What's next? Tomorrow, we have another webinar about cloud cost optimization for SaaS infrastructures at the same time, 11, and it's tomorrow. And at the end of the month, February 29th, we have a webinar. It's a success story from Green Soil, one of our customers, to master a cloud migration. And related to object storage, in Q2, we will do 2 other webinars, one related to education industry with object storage, with a key customer testimonial during the webinar. And we will also do another webinar related to object storage to understand and to learn how to optimize the performance of object storage on the customer side. And it's now time for the Q&A. So Marie and Quentin, you can open your mic. If you have questions, I remind you that you can ask on the question box or directly on the chat. I can see that we have some. So there is a first question about file transfer. Do you have some links to share on this? Any advice to consolidate? Any advice to consolidate a retrieve mechanism in case of download fails for infrastructure reasons? So I can see that Quentin has shared the link to the documentation about things, and of course we can contact you later on that if you want.
Yeah, adding a note also so that multi-part upload is typically interesting for this kind of use case, as you want to be able to pursue your download in case of failure, etc. But I guess the documentation is getting a bit further about that.
We had a question about would you recommend multi-AZ or single AZ to store a backup data? Marie, maybe you want to complete.
So here something. So first, something to keep in mind. So whatever the resiliency of your storage class, you need a backup strategy. As in 70% of the case, data loss come from like human errors, and it can happen always. Now thinking of on which class your backup should be stored. This really depends, I would say, about the criticality of your data and the time you can wait for it in case of unexpected events. So multi-AZ will always be more secure, but single AZ is still really fine, especially for backup. And then, so as Paul was saying, like using secondary backup on colder storage than primary backup is always the best practice. So these are the general principles, but I hope it helps.
Thank you. There is another question. Can we use IAM groups in bucket policies?
So We cannot use IAM groups in bucket policies at the moment, but it is planned on our roadmap, and it will be okay during Q2 of this year, so soon.
Okay. Is Cockpit free?
So yes, you have a free version of Cockpit with a little retention. I think it's 7 days, and then if you want to have months of retention, you have to pay a little plan.
Thank you, Quentin. If we need to prevent new applications to access all buckets, do we need to deny all users on bucket policies by default?
It depends. So if you want to prevent new application to access to all buckets, so the first thing is with IAM, you just don't grant this new application. You don't apply a policy which enable them to use object storage. But if you have to enable them to use object storage because you have a use case, you can then apply a bucket policy on all of your buckets, allowing only your user ID or some of your application ID, and the other will be automatically denied.
Yeah, as Quentin said, like there is an end condition to allow users to perform actions between IAM and bucket policy. So if IAM restrict access and your application don't have access by default, then you're good.
Thank you. Someone is asking, using a famous bucket provider and using the public cloud of Scaleway, but never used object storage, why the customer should move their data to the Scaleway Object Storage? Marie, you want? Yeah.
Yes, I can. So I think we are now, as you may have seen into this presentation, like checking a lot of boxes that big provider names already offer on the market. So this is showing the maturity now of the products. Like we have SLA, we have multi-asset by design, we have 11 lines of durability. We are soon having ISO and encryption at rest. So I think we are now ticking all the boxes. In terms of pricing positioning, it can really also change the game for your business. It doesn't mean that it is cheap, but it can be more scalable and sustainable. So you can also consider that. And then I think we are also accelerating very fast on AI. And so we have lots of things into our performance track to boost even more object storage to compete on very high performance use cases. So I would say, depending on your use case, it might be worth considering.
Thank you, Marie. Can you move from multi-AZ to one AZ easily?
Sure. So you can change at any time your object storage class. You can also upload directly into OneZone. That's a possibility. You can, depending on the size of objects you have to move, you can also set up a lifecycle rule, just reminding that you can only switch 500,000 of objects per day to another class, thanks to lifecycle rules.
And there is another way, it's by doing server-side copy. So you can write a little script or a little program that will copy objects on themselves, but with a different storage class. But I do think that the lifecycle rules is the best solution for this case.
Thank you. A question about Cockpit and Scaleway data and external data. Are the objects stored in a bucket considered to be Scaleway data or external data? I think Marie, you are muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the question. So I think this is considering cockpit. Yeah, so this is like customer data. So it's, I guess, it counts as Scaleway product data as a whole. I think it.
We need to check. There is a question about the endpoint URL, maybe for Quentin. So before recently, someone using the syntax for AWS S3 API, and it changed to the endpoint URL s3.fr.
So yeah, okay, I see the question. So before you use the vhost URL, and now it's not working anymore, and you have to use the path style bucket URL. So we released 2 weeks ago the get object through our new gateway, which increase a lot the performances, but it can be related to this. So please open a support ticket and we will check as soon as possible.
Thank you. And last question for now, is custom domains with SSL planned?
So you can achieve this with what's the name again?
Edge services.
Edge services, yes. You can achieve this with Edge services and with a CNAME on the object storage. And thanks to Edge services, you can have you can generate a SSL certificate for your custom domain. I think there is a documentation on the Scaleway website about this.
So we invite you to join the private beta of Edge service if you want to unlock your use case on this sooner rather than later.
I don't see any more questions.
I have the documentation. I send it on the answer section to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Quentin. Another question, is MC-Minio client a permitted third party, and what about Scaleway?
So yes, I don't know if Quentin, you want to take the question to develop.
I don't think I understood the question correctly, but every client which use the S3 protocol are permitted. So it can be MCE, MCCLI, AWS CLI, as shown in my example, or Airclone, or everything using the S3 protocol.
Yeah. And so regarding F3 compatibility, so we've shown a bit into this presentation that we have a very, very high level of compatibility compared to other alternative solutions on the market. So if anytime you find any incompatibility into your user journey, don't hesitate to share it with us, as we will immediately dig into it to fix it.
Thank you. There is another question on Cockpit. Is there any live session plan to have a view about the dashboards available? I don't know if it's related only on object storage or related to Cockpit as a whole, but this is something we can ask to the Cockpit team to plan. Yeah. Okay. No more question, guys. So I think we will wrap up this webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you very much, Quentin, for the presentation, for the demonstration. As a reminder, you will receive the replay of this webinar in your mailbox. Thank you for joining. Have a very good day and see you very soon at Scaleway. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.